Okay, so in chapter 22, Kepha was praying for peace for everybody who was listening, who wanted to find out the truth. In chapter 23, Simon refuses the peace, the Shalom. To this Simon answered, "We have no need of your Shalom, for if there be Shalom and concord, we will not be able to make any advance towards the discovery of truth. For robbers and debauchees have Shalom among themselves, and every immorality agrees with itself. And if we have met with this view, that for the sake of Shalom we should give assent to all that is said, we will confer no benefit upon the hearers, but on the contrary, we will impose upon them and will depart Havarim," that is, friends. So Simon is saying that we shouldn't have peace because everybody's just going to agree to disagree, or be like peaceful and not actually learn anything new, not actually find out the truth. He's saying you can't figure out the truth if everybody's just being peaceful, a light debate or whatever. He wants a real debate. Continuing on. So do not invoke Shalom, but rather battle, which is the mother of Shalom. And if you can, exterminate errors. And do not seek for friendship obtained by unfair admissions, for this I would have you know above all, that when two fight with each other, then there will be Shalom when one has been defeated, and has fallen. And therefore fight as best you can, and do not expect Shalom without war, which is impossible. Or if it can be attained, show us how. So he's basically getting ready for a battle. He thinks that the mother of Shalom, the mother of peace, is actually war. And that when somebody is defeated, then there is peace. And so he wants an all-out war, basically, with this debate. Going on, chapter 24, Kepha's explanation. To this Kepha answered, "Hear with all attention, O men, what we say. Let us suppose that this world is a great plain, and that from two states, whose Melachim, that is kings, are at variance with each other, two generals were sent to fight. And suppose the general of the good king gave this counsel, that both armies should, without bloodshed, submit to the authority of the better king, whereby all should be safe without danger. But that the opposite general should say, No, but we must fight, that not he who is worthy, but who is stronger may reign with those who will escape. Which, I ask you, would you rather choose? I doubt not, but that you would give your hands to the better king, with the safety of all. And I do not now wish, as Simon says that I do, that assent should be given, for the sake of peace, to those things that are spoken amiss, but that truth should be sought for with quietness and order." So Kepha is saying that if you got two kings, and these kings are at war with each other, and they both send a general to each other, then the general who wishes that the best king should win out, and that nobody's going to die. So that would be the better choice, where nobody dies. But of course, he's likening Simon to the other general who just wants war, and whoever is strongest will win. And in this way, he's talking about the debate, that whoever gives the best debate will win. And it's not... Basically, he's saying that Simon is like a general who just wants the best debater to win, and not the truth would win. And a lot of the times, debaters would have the person who just does the best debate win, but that doesn't mean that they're right. A lot of the times, the best debater is not the one who was right. He was just the one who was able to sway the population. But Peter wants the truth to win out. And he also says that he's wishing peace, Shalom, to everybody so that they can have quietness and order while they debate, so that everybody will be able to understand what they're saying, and that if anything was spoken amiss, then they would find that out. And he's saying, basically, if you have a debate without peace, then nobody's going to learn anything. I have been posting on Facebook sometimes in the Christian discussion groups, and when somebody will say that Jesus is God, then I will give them a list of things that means that it's not true. And I get into these debates with people, so I see this all the time. Most Christians today will not debate with peace. They will debate trying to prove that they're right and you're wrong, and they will not listen to the fact that maybe they might be wrong on something. They are very headstrong. And Kepha, Peter, is saying that we should have peace when we debate things so that somebody learns something. Continuing on, chapter 25, principles on which the discussion should be conducted. Kepha continues, for some, in the contest of disputations, when they perceive that their error is confuted, immediately begin, for the sake of making good their retreat, to create a disturbance and to stir up strifes, that it may not be manifest to all that they were defeated. And therefore I frequently entreat that the investigation of the matter in dispute may be conducted with all patience and quietness, so that if perchance anything seem to be not rightly spoken, it may be allowed to go back over it and explain it more distinctly. So I thought this was interesting also because I talked on the disturbance that happened with Paul when James the Just had basically helped convert the high priests like Caiaphas to having a baptism in Yahshua's name. They were all ready to be immersed, and then all of a sudden comes Paul, and he makes a big disturbance. So I thought it was interesting. I would imagine if this was true, I'm not even saying if it's true or not like I talked about in the first video, but if it was true, I would say that the enemy, they call Paul the enemy, but maybe they're talking about Satan being in him. The enemy would cause a disturbance if they thought that their point was not being made. So it's talking about when they were all ready to be immersed, then the strife happened. So I'll read this again and try to picture that in your mind too. For some in the contest of disputations, when they perceive that their error is confuted, immediately begin for the sake of making good their retreat to create a disturbance and to stir up strifes that may not be manifest to all that they are defeated. Doesn't that sound like what Satan did in that instance? So it's interesting, and this happens also, just constantly, when people are, debating back and forth, and then somebody else finds out that, they're wrong. Well, the next thing is they create a disturbance. It's just like human behavior, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just Satan working through those people. When the enemy finds out that, people are getting converted, then it lashes out, through whoever it can. So Kepha is basically saying that he wants peace so that anybody who's listening to this matter is not going to be disturbed and taken away by a fallacy, but will rather be able to listen intelligently and try to figure out what is the truth and what is in error. And that can't happen if there's no peace in the conversation, where somebody comes in and is creating disturbance and deflecting and things like that. Continuing on. For sometimes a thing may be spoken in one way and heard in another, while it is either advanced too obscurely or not attended to with sufficient care. And on this account I desire that our conversation should be conducted patiently, so that neither should the one snatch it away from the other, nor should the unseasonable speech of one contradicting interrupt the speech of another. And that we should not cherish the desire of finding fault, but that we should be allowed, as I have said, to go over again what has not been clearly enough spoken, and that by fairest examination the knowledge of the truth may become clearer. For we ought to know that if anyone is conquered by the truth, it is not he that is conquered, but the ignorance that is him, which is the worst of all demons. Now, I just want to reiterate this. It's very important. When you are debating somebody and you find out that you're wrong, a lot of people will feel prideful and not want to let go, of their argument. They don't want to say, wow, I was wrong, and just sort of sit back and apologize. I guess I was wrong. You have the truth and, you proved it. Nobody wants to do that because of pride. But Kiva is saying that it's not that you're getting defeated when you have a debate and you find out you were wrong on something, but it's rather the ignorance that was in you that just got defeated. And now you know the truth, which is a fantastic thing. If you find out you were wrong, but now you know the truth, that's a great thing. So people don't, when they get debated and they find out they're wrong, they don't rejoice in finding out the truth because of pride, but they rather get upset and then they tend to lash out instead of rejoicing that, wow, I found out the truth. They really proved it to me. Now I have more knowledge. I know I used to debate people with Christians versus atheists, a group that I was in a while ago, and I love debating because I always find out interesting things listening to what the other person was saying. The best way to debate is to listen to the other person and then debate their argument and prove them wrong. A lot of people don't do that, but that's what I would do. And I find out when I started saying Jesus was not God on my channel, a lot of the times people would, give me all these proof texts. They wouldn't disprove what I said. They would rather try to prove their position, which is a horrible way of debating anybody, because it means you're not listening to the other person. So when somebody would debate me saying something based on the way I was thinking, like a contradictory idea based on what I was thinking, then I would have to take them seriously and actually think about what they're saying and, give my opinion on that. People would just come at me with their proof texts, then I can't take them seriously because they weren't even listening to what I was saying. I've already defeated their arguments, like when Jesus says the only true God is his Father. It's proof that Jesus didn't believe that he was God. And they don't like that. So instead of actually debating what I've said that proves them wrong, they go into a tangent and start saying, what they think proves that Jesus is God, rather than listening to Jesus' own words. So I think this is a great little saying here. So I will reread it and then I'll start going further here. For we ought to know that if anyone is conquered by the truth, it is not he that is conquered, but the ignorance that is in him, which is the worst of all demons, so that he who can drive it out receives the palm of salvation. For it is our purpose to benefit the hearers, not that we may conquer badly, but that we may be well conquered for the acknowledgement of the truth. For if our speech is actuated by the desire of seeking the truth, even although we will speak anything imperfectly through human frailty, Yahweh in his unspeakable goodness will fill up secretly in the understandings of the hearers those things that are lacking. So they're saying that even if Peter was unable to say it perfectly, Yahweh is going to let the hearers understand what he was lacking, which I find is probably the case with many people. If you're just listening to the Holy Spirit, you're going to make mistakes every now and then, but that's just the way we are. Yahweh uses some of the people that would make the most mistakes sometimes, and he uses that to his benefit, because other people will, prideful people will pick at people's shortcomings, and I think he does that a lot with women speaking, because there's a lot of men out there who won't even listen to women at all, because they say that women should not teach. And so I think Yahweh will hide nuggets of his truth with the women, and the men who are humble enough to listen to a woman will pick up on that. But if they are not, then they're not going to hear those things. So I think that, Yahweh definitely helps people understand things, even if it wasn't said the right way. For he is righteous, and according to the purpose of everyone, he enables some to find easily what they seek, while to others he renders obscure even what is before their eyes. And this, again, is amazing, because it goes along with what I experienced. A year and a half ago, I thought Jesus was God, and I thought all those proof texts were real, and I also thought the earth was a globe, and it just goes on and on and on with all these things that I was thinking. But I think that, he blinds our eyes. He renders it obscure, even if it's right before your eyes. Because when I asked about the flat earth, I asked God. I didn't, ask somebody else to prove it to me. I asked God to prove it to me. I just said, what is it? What is the proof? And he led me to reading the Bible. Like I said, Genesis 1:7. I only got 7 verses in, and he proved it to me. And I'd read Genesis 1 like hundreds of times. Well, maybe not hundreds of times, but, I've read it a lot. It's the beginning of the book, So it's one of those chapters that you would read a lot if you start and you don't finish, but you start and, you're going to read it every time. And I just never got it. It was obscure until I prayed for the truth, and then it was easily found. So I'll go back here and reread and start over. For he is righteous, and according to the purpose of everyone, he enables some to find easily what they seek, while to others he renders obscure even what is before their eyes. Since, then, the way of Yahweh is the way of shalom, or peace, let us with shalom seek the things that are Yahweh's. If anyone has anything to advance in answer to this, let him do so. But if there is no one who wishes to answer, I will begin to speak, and I myself will bring forward what another may object to me, and will refute it. Chapter 26. Simon's Interruption. When therefore Kepha had begun to continue his discourse, Simon, interrupting his speech, said, "Why do you hasten to speak whatever you please? I understand your tricks. You wish to bring forward those matters which explanation you have well studied, that you may appear to the ignorant crowd to be speaking well. But I will not allow you this subterfuge. Now therefore, since you promise, as a brave man, to answer all that any one chooses to bring forward, please be pleased to answer me in the first place." Then Kepha said, "I am ready, only provided that our discussion may be with shalom." Then Simon said, "Do not you see, O simpleton, that in pleading for shalom you act in opposition to your master? And that what you propose is not suitable to him, who promises that he will overthrow ignorance? Or if you are right in asking shalom from the audience, then your master was wrong in saying, 'I have not come to send shalom on earth, but a sword.' For either you say well, and he not well, or else if your master said well, then you not at all well. For you do not understand that your statement is contrary to his, whose Talmud you promise yourself to be." Talmud is students. So what Simon is saying, that if Kepha's asking for peace, then he's not really a student of Yahushua HaMashiach, because Yahushua said that he didn't come to bring peace. He came to bring a sword. This is actually an argument that many people bring up, like atheists. They will say it's so contradictory, or, how can you believe in Yahushua who, said he was coming to bring a sword, and yet you say he's the Prince of Peace. They love to, say that Jesus was contradictory to himself all the time. So that's what Simon is bringing up. Chapter 27. Then Kepha says, "Neither he who sent me did amiss in sending a sword upon the earth, nor do I act contrary to him in asking shalom of the hearers, but you both unskillfully and rashly find fault with what you do not understand. For you have heard that the Master came not to send peace on earth, but that he also said, Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the very sons of Yahweh. You have not heard. So my sentiments are not different from those of the Master when I recommend peace, the keepers of which he assigned blessedness. Then Simon said, In your desire to answer for your master, O Kepha, you have brought a much more serious charge against him. If he himself came not to make peace, yet enjoined upon others to keep it, where then is the consistency of that other saying of his? Is it not enough for the Talmud that he be as his master? So Simon is asking, why is Jesus, Yahushua, saying everybody else should be peaceful when he is not? And he's saying, shouldn't the students be just like the master? And chapter 28. To this, Kepha answered, Our master Yeshua, who is the Navi Amet, that is, the true prophet, and ever mindful of himself, neither contradicted himself, neither enjoined upon us anything different from what he himself practiced. For whereas he said, I am not come to send shalom on earth, but a sword, and henceforth you will see father separated from son, son from father, husband from wife, and wife from husband, mother from daughter, and daughter from mother, brother from brother, father-in-law from daughter-in-law, friend from friend. All these contain the halakha of shalom, that is, the teaching of peace, and I will tell you how. At the beginning of his preaching, as wishing to invite and lead all to salvation, and induce them to bear patiently labors and trials, he blessed the poor, and promised that they should obtain the heavenly kingdom, for their endurance of poverty, in order that under the influence of such a hope they might bear with the equanimity the right of poverty, despising covetousness, for covetousness is one and the greatest of most pernicious sins. But he promised also that the hungry and the thirsty should be satisfied with the ageless blessings of righteousness, in order that they might bear poverty patiently, and not be led by it to undertake any unrighteous work. In like manner also he said that the pure in heart are blessed, and that thereby they should see Yahweh, in order that every one desiring so great a good might keep himself from evil and polluted thoughts. One of the interesting things here is when it says covetousness is one and the greatest and most pernicious sins. It really is. You've got the committing adultery is lusting for another one, in your heart, and idols. A lot of people have money as an idol, or things. Like you have to have the best TV, or the best technology, the best phone, a smartphone or something, or the best car. A lot of those things can be idols because people care more about their car than they do about maybe saving a life or something. You never know when one of those things might pop up, and a lot of people do really care for their car like crazy, or care for their electronics. Like if you were wanting to save a tablet instead of a person with a car going to run them over, are you going to be worrying about that tablet? That idol is a thing. People just idolize it. And those things, a lot of the commandments can come down to idolizing things over people, or wanting to covet somebody else's stuff. Like even in the instance of wanting to be right, you want to look right, so you have pride, and you're not beyond falsely accusing somebody because you want to look like you're the one who's right instead of them. You're coveting them the truth, and instead you will fall into breaking the commandment and lying to promote yourself to make it look like you were right. But basically in this chapter he's just discussing how Yahushua was telling everybody that they should bear with the fact that this is not equal to your worth in this lifetime. Understand that you're going to have some poverty, you're going to have some bad times, but that as long as you are good, doing good works and doing Yahweh's will, then in the future you will have recompense, a good rewards for doing those things. Chapter 29. Shalom and Strife. Thus therefore our master, inviting his Talmudim, his students, to patience, impressed upon them that the blessing of Shalom, the blessing of peace, was also to be preserved with the labor of patience. But on the other hand, he mourned over those who lived in riches and luxury, who bestowed nothing upon the poor, proving that they must render an account, because they did not pity their neighbors, even when they were in poverty, whom they ought to have loved as themselves. And by such sayings as these he brought some indeed to obey him, but others he rendered hostile. The believers, therefore, and the obedient, he charges to have peace among themselves, and says to them, Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the very sons of Yahweh. But to those who not only did not believe, but set themselves in opposition to his halakha, his teaching, he proclaims the war of the word and of confutation, and says that henceforth you will see son separated from father, and husband from wife, and daughter from mother, and brother from brother, and daughter-in-law from mother-in-law, and a man's foes will be they of his own house. For in every house, when there begins to be a difference betwixt believer and unbeliever, there is necessarily a contest, the unbelievers on the one hand fighting against the faith, and the believers on the other, confuting the old error and the vices of sins in them. And of course, there's a lot of people going back to the law of Moses these days, and they're having these problems with their family. It showed up a lot during the Christmas time. It's very hard. Daughters and fathers, personally and friends, I've seen it happen. And it's not, this doesn't change. It's definitely happening, and almost seems worse these days than it has ever been, with people going back to the old ways and refuting the errors that people have believed in, like the error of Christmas being a good thing to celebrate Christ instead of an abomination for Yahweh. Chapter 30. In like manner also, during the last period of his teaching, he wages war against the Sophrim and the Prushim, that is, the scribes and the Pharisees, charging them with evil deeds and unsound doctrine, and with hiding the key of knowledge that they had handed down to them from Moses. Moshe is Moses, by which the gate of the heavenly kingdom might be opened. But when our Master sent us forth to preach, he commanded us that into whatsoever city or house we should enter, we should say, Peace be to this house. And if, said he, a son of peace be there, your peace will come upon him. But if there be not, your peace will return to you. Also, that going out from that house or city, we should shake off upon them the very dust that adhered to our feet. But it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city or house. This indeed he commanded to be done at length. If first the word of truth be preached in the city or house, whereby they who receive the faith of the truth may become sons of peace and sons of Yahweh, and those who will not receive it may be convicted as enemies of peace and of Yahweh. So one thing I'm just going to point out about this chapter, it talks about Jesus saying that it says he waged war against the scribes and the Pharisees and charged them with evil deeds and unsound doctrine. So they're saying that Jesus was going against the scribes for their unsound doctrine. And the scribes are the ones who wrote the Old Testament, and the New Testament he's probably speaking prophetically. We have to question the scribes and the translators and all that. So it's interesting. I mean, that's, biblical. And Jesus said, beware of the scribes and the Pharisees. And he also, the Old Testament also talked about the lying scribes. So, it's something that we have to pay attention to. And he says that they hid the key of knowledge when they were handing down this information from Moses. So he's saying what Moses said got hid. Some of what Moses was talking about got hid. And the scribes and the Pharisees were the one hiding it. Continuing on, chapter 31. Thus, therefore, we, observing the commands of our Master, first offer peace to our hearers, that the way of salvation may be known without any tumult. But if anyone does not receive the words of peace, nor acquiesce in the truth, we know how to direct against him the war of the word, and to rebuke him sharply by confuting his ignorance and charging home upon him his sins. Therefore of necessity we offer peace, that if anyone is a son of peace, our peace may come upon him. But from him who makes himself an enemy of peace, our peace will return to ourselves. We do not, therefore, as you say, propose peace by agreement with the immoral. For indeed we should straightway have given you the right hand, but only in order that, through our discussing quietly and patiently, it might be more easily ascertained by the hearers which one is the true speech. So he's saying that Simon was accusing him of saying that they were just going to have peace and agree with what would be immoral. But Peter, Kepha, is saying, no, that's not what I was saying. I'm just saying that hopefully everybody will discuss things peacefully so that we can, the hearers and us, can find out what is the true speech, what's the true doctrine. But if you differ and disagree with yourself, how will you stand? He must of necessity fall, he who is divided in himself, for every kingdom divided against itself will not stand. If you have anything to say to this, say on. Chapter 32. Then said Simon, I am astonished at your folly. For you so propound the words of your master as if it were held to be certain concerning him that he is a prophet, while I can verily easily prove that he often contradicted himself. In short, I will refute you from those words that you have yourself brought forward. For you say that he said that every kingdom or every city divided in itself will not stand. And elsewhere you say that he said that he would send a sword, and that he might separate those who are in one house, so that son will be divided from father, daughter from mother, brother from brother, so that if there be 5 in one house, 3 will be divided against 2, and 2 against 3. If, then, everything that is divided falls, he who makes divisions furnishes causes of falling, and if he is such, assuredly he is immoral. Answer this if you can. So Simon is basically saying something other people have said. You know, if he makes a good point in his argument, but of course a lot of arguments are based on fallacies, and then they're easily proven wrong. It sounds good, but it's not true. You know, not logical, that sort of thing. He's saying that if the house is divided against itself, and that's what Jesus came to do, is to divide households against each other, then, you know, if Jesus also said that everything that's divided will fall, then he's saying that all the households will fall. You know, that's what he's getting from that. And of course, people come to these conclusions sometimes by folly. And so we're going to see what Kepha says to that. Chapter 33. Then Kepha, do not rashly take exception, O Simon, against the things that you do not understand. In the first place, I will answer your assertion that I set forth the words of my master, and from them resolve matters about which there is still doubt. Our master, when he sent us, Shalom, that is, apostles, to preach, enjoined us to teach all tribes the things that were committed to us. We cannot therefore speak those things as they were spoken by him. For our commission is not to speak, but to teach those things, and from them to show how every one of them rests upon truth. Nor again are we permitted to speak anything of our own. For we are sent, and of necessity he who is sent delivers the message as he has been ordered, and sets forth the will of the sender. For if I should speak anything different from what he who sent me enjoined me, I would be a false sholiach, that is, false apostle, not saying what I am commanded to say, but what seems good to myself. Whoever does this evidently wishes to show himself to be better than he is than the one by whom he is sent, and without doubt is a traitor. If, on the contrary, he keeps by the things that he is commanded, and brings forward most clear assertions of them, it will appear that he is accomplishing the work of a sholiach, apostle. And it is by striving to fulfill this that I displease you. Blame me not, therefore, because I bring forward the words of him who sent me. But if there is aught in them that is not fairly spoken, you have liberty to confute me. But this can in no wise be done, for he is a navi, he's a prophet, and cannot be contrary to himself. But if you do not think that he is a prophet, let this be first inquired into. So one thing I want to point out is it says that whoever does this, that is, speaks what they're not commanded to speak, wants to show himself better than the one who was sending him. And as Jesus says in John, okay, according to the book of John, Jesus was sent by God, and Jesus says that we are sent in the same way that Jesus was sent, that God sent Jesus into the world, and in the same way Jesus sent us into the world. And so we are sent by Jesus to do what he wants us to do. And so we are all supposed to be apostles, basically. We are supposed to be into the world and doing God's will. And if you're not doing that, then you are, according to this, wishing to show yourself better than the one who sent you, wishing to place yourself above Jesus. When Jesus said that we were to do the will of God, and most supposed Christians today are doing their own will, even though they think they're doing, something good, they're going by their own will rather than what God wants them to do. I mean, if you're still sinning, you're obviously not doing God's will. So, if these people would be sent by Jesus, but they think themselves better than him because they think they know better than he does, if they are, teaching things to others. Like, I know there's people out there who actually teach that to be saved, all you have to do is believe that Jesus is the Christ, and you don't have to do anything else. So you don't need to do any works, you don't need to stop sinning, because Jesus covered your sins and all that stuff. Well, they think they know better than Jesus, that, they have to live with their sin. But Jesus said, go and sin no more, twice, according to the Bible, right? So, it's an interesting proposition, and probably true. If you are sent to do something and you speak your own words instead of what you were told to say, then you're showing that you thought you knew better of what to say than the one who sent you. I mean, sometimes that happens, just like being on the phone with somebody. Somebody will say, well, tell this person, X, Y, and Z, and you tell this person X, Y, and B, and you thought you understood better what needed to be said, but, you weren't saying what they told you to say. And that might be true in some cases if, it's just a person you're talking about sending you. Maybe it was your grandmother who's not thinking so clearly. You understood what she meant, but, she didn't really say it clearly, right? Okay, that's okay. But if it's God or Jesus sending you, they know what is true. They know what's right. So why do you think you know better than they do? And at the end of this chapter, Kepha is talking about how first we should prove that Yeshua is the Navi, the prophet, before they get into inconsistencies. And chapter 34, then said Simon, I have no need to learn this from you, but how these things agree with one another. For if he will be shown to be inconsistent, he will be proved at the same time not to be a prophet. Then says Kepha, but if I first show him to be a prophet, it will follow that what seems to be inconsistency is not such. For no one can be proved to be a prophet merely by consistency, because it is possible for many to attain this. But if consistency does not make a Navi a prophet, much more inconsistency does not. Because therefore there are many things that to some seem inconsistent, which yet have consistency in them on a more profound investigation, as also other things that seem to have consistency, but which, being more carefully discussed, are found to be inconsistent. For this reason, I do not think there is any better way to judge of these things than to ascertain in the first instance whether he be a prophet who has spoken those things that appear to be inconsistent. For it is evident that if he is found to be a prophet, those things that seem to be contradictory must have consistency, but are misunderstood. Concerning these things, therefore, proofs will be properly demanded. For we, the Shalom apostles, are sent to expound the sayings and affirm the judgments of him who has sent us. But we are not commissioned to say anything of our own, but to unfold the truth, as I have said, of his words. Chapter 35. Then Simon said, Instruct us, therefore, how it can be consistent that he who causes divisions, which divisions cause those who are divided to fall, can either seem to be good or to have come for the salvation of men. Then Kepha said, I will tell you how our master said that every kingdom and every house divided against itself cannot stand. And whereas he himself did this, see how it makes for salvation. By the word of truth, he certainly divides the kingdom of the world, which is founded in error, and every home in it, that error may fall, and truth may reign. But if it should be in any house that error, being introduced by anyone, divides the truth, then, where error has gained a footing, it is certain that truth cannot stand. Then Simon said, But it is uncertain whether your master divides error or truth. Then Kepha, That belongs to another question. But if you are agreed that everything that is divided falls, it remains that I will show, if only you will hear in peace, that our Yeshua has divided and dispelled error by teaching truth. Chapter 36. Then said Simon, Do not repeat again and again your talk of peace, but expound briefly what it is that you think or believe. Kepha answered, Why are you afraid of hearing frequently of peace? For do you not know that peace is the perfection of Torah? For wars and disputes spring from sins, and where there is no sin, there is peace of inner being. But where there is peace, truth is found in disputations, righteousness, and works. Then Simon, You seem to me not to be able to profess what you think. Then Kepha, I will speak, but according to my own judgment, not under constraint of your tricks. For I desire that which is salutary and profitable to be brought to the knowledge of all, and therefore I will not delay to state it as briefly as possible. There is one Yahweh, and he is the creator of the world, a righteous judge, rendering to everyone at some time or other according to his deed. But now, for the assertion of these things, I know that countless thousands of words can be called forth. Chapter 37. Then Simon said, I admire, indeed, the quickness of your wit, yet I do not embrace the error of your faith. For you have wisely foreseen that you may be contradicted, and you have even politely confessed that for the assertion of these things countless thousands of words will be called forth. For no one agrees with the profession of your faith. In short, as to there being one Yahweh, and the world being his work, who can receive this doctrine? Neither I think any one of the pagans, even if he be an unlearned man, and certainly no one of the philosophers, but not even the rudest and most wretched of the Yahudim, the Jews, nor I myself, who am well acquainted with their Torah. Then Kepha said, Put aside the opinions of those who are not here, and tell us face to face, what is your own? Then Simon said, I can state what I really think, but this consideration makes me reluctant to do so, that if I say what is neither acceptable to you, nor seems right to your unskilled rabble, you indeed, as confounded, will straightway shut your ears, and that they may not be polluted with blasphemy, forsooth, and will take to flight, because you cannot find an answer, while the unreasoning populace will assent to you, and embrace you as one teaching those things that are commonly received among them, and will curse me as professing things new and unheard of, and instilling my error into the minds of others. Chapter 38. Then Kepha, Are you not making use of long preambles as you accuse us of doing, because you have no truth to bring forward? For if you have, begin without circumlocution. That is, the use of unnecessarily large number of words to express an idea. If you have so much confidence, and if indeed what you say be displeasing to any one of the hearers, he will withdraw, and those who remain will be compelled by your assertion to approve what is true. Begin therefore to expound what seems to you to be right. Then Simon said, I say that there are many Elohim, but that there is one incomprehensible and unknown to all, and that he is the Elohim Hagadol of all these Elohim, that is the greatest God of all these gods. And then Kepha answered, this Elohim Hagadol, whom you assert to be incomprehensible and unknown to all, can you prove his existence from the scriptures of the Jews, which are held to be of authority, or from some others of which we are all ignorant, or from the Greek authors, or from your own writings? Certainly you are at liberty to speak from whatever writings you please, yet so that you first show that they are prophetic, for so their authority will be held without question. So Kepha is saying that he should bring forth some proof of this God of all gods that is unknowable and incomprehensible. And Kepha was saying that it should be a prophetic work that has been proven to be true. Like the Bible has so many prophecies that have been proven to be true, we can accept it as an authority. But if he has works that haven't been proven to be true, not prophetic, then how can you accept that as an authority over, the Bible? Chapter 39. Then Simon said, I will make use of assertions from Torah, of the Jews only, for it is manifest to all who take interest in obedience that this Torah is of universal authority, yet that everyone receives the understanding of this Torah according to his own judgment. For it has so been written by him who created the world that the faith of things is made to depend upon it. Whence, whether anyone wishes to bring forward truth, or anyone to bring forward falsehood, no assertion will be received without this Torah. Inasmuch, therefore, as my knowledge is most fully in accordance with Torah, I rightly declared that there are many Elohim, of whom one is more eminent than the rest, and incomprehensible, even he who is Elohim Hagadol of Elohim, but that there are many Elohim, Torah itself informs me. For in the first place it says this in the passage where one is the figure of a serpent speaks to Chawa, the first woman, Eve. On the day you eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you will be as Elohim, that is, as those who made man. And after they have tasted of the tree, Yahweh himself testifies, saying to the rest of the Elohim, Behold, Adam is become as one of us. Thus, therefore, it is manifest that there were many Elohim engaged in the making of man. Also, whereas at the first Yahweh said to the other Elohim, Let us make man after our own image and likeness. Also, his saying, Let us drive him out, as in let us. And again, come, let us go down and confound their language. All these things indicate that there are many Elohim. But this also is written, You will not curse the Elohim, nor curse the chief of your people. And again this writing, Yahweh alone led them, and there were no strange Elohim with them, shows that there are many Elohim. There are also many other testimonies that might be adduced from Torah, not only obscure but plain, by which is taught that there are many Elohim. One of these was chosen by Lot, that he might be the El of the Jews. But it is not of him that I speak, but of that Elohim Hagadol, who is also his Elohim, whom even the Jews themselves did not know. For he is not their God, but the God of those who know him. Okay, so this is the big Gnostic idea, that there is some unknowable God that is above Yahweh, the creator of the earth. That's why some Gnostics will think that Yahweh, who created the earth of the Old Testament, was subservient, or the demiurge, of a larger God. And this is interesting also because the unknowable God is what the Trinity teaches. The Trinity teaches that God is so illogical, that you can't, whenever anybody says that the logic of the Bible proves that God is one, and it does, and it's not Jesus, it's his Father, there's verses that prove this, literally prove it. People don't want to hear it, so they say that he is unknowable. It's illogical, he's unknowable, you can't know who God is. Yet the scriptures clearly state that Jesus was sent to us so that we would know God. That's one of the reasons why I was wondering about the book of John, because the book of John says that Jesus came to show us the unknowable God. John 1:18. No man hath seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. And then John 17, verse 25. O righteous Father, the world hath not known thee, but I have known thee, and these have known that thou hast sent me. So he's seemingly saying that, the Father is an unknown God, and that Jesus is making him known to us. Sort of Gnostic, maybe not, I understand that people didn't really know the Father because they weren't keeping the law, they were sinning. You can't know the Father if you're sinning. It's when we purify ourselves as he is pure that we become to know him as he is. From 1 John 3:1, Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. So, as we get pure, we get to know God, and we will know what he is like. And the world, when they're stuck in sin, doesn't really know God. I mean, isn't it obvious that the world doesn't know him at all? So, it could be taken as Gnostic, but it could also just be taken the way I've explained it. There's another reference to the unknown God in Acts 17:22. Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars's hill, and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God. Whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things. I'm not going to read much further here, but it's interesting that Paul is telling them that the unknown God that they ignorantly worshipped is the same one who he is going to declare to them. And I'm reading books concerning how Paul is basically what modern Christianity is. And, it's interesting. Especially since modern Christianity has the Trinity that is an unknown God that you can't know. Like I said, the whole purpose of the Bible talks about how Jesus was sent so that we could know God. We would know to do God's will. We would know to be able to do God's will, and that's how we would know him. And that's how we know Jesus. And when he comes back, he says those who didn't do God's will and those who worked lawlessness are those who he didn't know. Jesus says, I never knew you, to those who practice lawlessness. So, to know somebody is to practice, what it's to spend time with them, and you spend time with them doing what they like to do, which is the law, and you'll know God and Jesus. If you don't, then you won't. You will just, Jesus will come back and say, I never knew you to you. Also, concerning the let us make man in our image, I explained this as, for one thing, Elohim is a majestic plural. It shows the greatness of God when it has a plurality to it. But besides that, in Proverbs, it has wisdom personified. And it says wisdom personified was with God when everything was made. So, wisdom is personified as a female, so it's not Jesus. Okay. So I'll leave a link below to that video if you want to check it out. But the let us make man in our image argument has been going for a long time to prove that there's multiple gods. And see, he's trying to prove that there's a lot of gods. He's trying to be a pagan, believing in multiple gods, whereas Christians, supposed Christians today, will use these verses to prove the Trinity and say that no, it's not multiple gods. It's just one God. That's funny. Moving on to Kepha's answer, chapter 40. When Kepha had heard this, he answered, Fear nothing, Simon, for behold, we have neither shut our ears nor fled, but we answer with words of truth to those things that you have spoken falsely, asserting this first, that there is one God, even Yahweh of the Jews, who is the only God, the creator of heaven and earth, who is also the God of all those whom you call little g gods. If then I will show you that none is superior to him, but that he himself is above all, you will confess that your error is above all. Then Simon said, Why indeed? Though I should be unwilling to confess it, would not the hearers who stand by me charge me with unwillingness to profess the things that are true? So Kepha is saying that he's going to prove that Yahweh is the only God, and he is God of gods, and there's no one above Yahweh. And Simon is saying that, of course, he'll agree that he is in error if Kepha, proves that Yahweh is the creator above all. He doesn't think that Kepha is going to prove it, but he's saying, of course I'll change. Of course I'll say I was in error then. I'm going to take a break here, and we'll pick up in the next video.